Okay. Hello everyone, we are back with another Destiny 2 video, and we have got our first build request from the audience today. Today we have got a request for the Mothkeeper wraps. These are a hunter set of exotics for your arms, and this is actually a pretty fun exotic to play around with. I did a lot of testing with it, I looked up some stuff, I tested out some weapons. It's got some neat interactions with it, and it's got a very unique build. I got a couple different builds for it, so I'll be making 2 different videos for this one. I've actually got a Strand build for this, and I've actually got a Stasis build for this. So, since this is my first request, I will do these builds back to back. So today I'm going to be doing the Strand version, and then right after this, I'm going to be putting out the Stasis version in the next day or 2. And yeah, that will celebrate the first request I got. So that is what we're going to be starting with. So here we go. First off, we got the Mothkeeper wraps. Their effect are: your grenade becomes a cage of lure moths that release on impact and fly towards the nearest target or ally. If they reach your target, they detonate in a blinding explosion. If they reach an ally, the moths grant your ally a void overshield. So these do 2 different things. They will either give you or your allies, because by ally it also means you, it'll give you or your allies an overshield. It spawns 2 moths. Each moths will do 50% of a shield, so you can get up to 100% shield, or split it up, 50-50. But you can either get an overshield, or you can not only damage enemies, but any enemies that survive the blast from one of the moths will also be blinded. And that's actual arc blinding, which means it does actually work with some of the arc fragments that work with blinding. So that's to either damage and or blind an enemy, or give you an overshield. Now, how the moths work depends entirely on where you throw the grenade at. If you throw the grenade close to you or your allies, it will spawn 2 purple moths, and those are the overshield ones. They'll fly to you or your allies, and they will give you an overshield. If you throw the grenade close to enemies, it will spawn white moths, arc ones, like light bluish. Those are damaging ones. They will actually hunt down and track down enemies, and they will blow up on them, and if they survive, they will blind them. Now, if you throw the grenade in between you and the enemies, it'll spawn 1 purple and 1 damaging one, and you get 1 overshield for somebody, and you get 1 damaging explosion, so it's kind of cool. Something else that the exotic does not tell you, it actually gives you a second grenade charge. On top of that, unlike most exotics, which don't typically stack when he has an aspect that gives you another grenade or anything like that, they don't typically stack. However, that does work with Strand. This actually stacks with the Widow Silk, so you actually can get with the Widow Silk and the Mothkeepers 3 grenade charges. That's right, you get 3 different grenade charges. Now, keep in mind, the kind of grenade you're using does not matter on the recharge time. The moths have their own charge timer, and it's a pretty quick one. So when you max it out, it's actually a fairly quick recharge timer. Even without any other abilities or any orbs of power, you're going to be getting your grenade back fairly quickly. Now, this build is actually going to be rated for all content. I'd actually gone through and I did this video earlier. I didn't like the way it turned out for 1, and 2, I realized that as I was testing, this really works with everything. So this is going to be rated for all content. You can do this, you can take this build into any content you want to, including Grandmasters, because of the utility that this build offers. The moths don't just damage, they also blind enemies. Now, you're not typically going to kill enemies in 1 shot with a grenade, or at least these grenades, in a Grandmaster, but they do blind enemies, which essentially stuns them. They can't attack you if they're blinded. On top of that, these grenades also intrinsically stun unstoppable champions because they blind. Now, if you actually look here, I've got Unstoppable pulled up. You can see the very first thing, it says Arc Blind Effects will stun Unstoppable Champions. This counts. I've tested this out. This counts. So this will stop Unstoppable Champions. Now, I already mentioned that we're using the Widow Silk aspect. This gives you that second grenade, or in this case, a third grenade since we're using the Mothkeeper's wraps. The second is going to be the Ensnaring Slam, and that is activating your arrow move to consume your class ability energy and dive to the ground, suspending all nearby targets on impact. So this is going to be your oh shit button. Besides being able to dodge, you can also just suspend the enemies around you. So it's going to be a very, very good utility for Grandmasters and even regular content. Now, as far as grenade goes, it does not matter what grenade you choose. None of these are going to affect the cooldown of your mods. They have their own timer. Nothing you choose here is going to matter. Everything else is pretty much going to be set to. You only have one ability for melee, and that's the Threaded Spike. It's still a very, very powerful one, even in Grandmasters, because of what we're going to pair with on the arm slots. We are, of course, going to be using a triple jump, and we are going to be using the Gambler's Dodge. The Gambler's Dodge will give you your melee back if you dodge near enemies with it. So we're going to be able to get our melee back by using that dodge. So we're actually going to be able to use our dodge to do quite a few things using this build. We'll be able to suspend enemies with it. We'll be able to get our melee back with it. And we can also just dodge out of danger with it. So dodge is a very, very important tool for hunters. Make sure you're boosting up your dodge. Make sure you're boosting up your mobility because it's got a lot of utility uses for it. One ability can basically do 3 things. So the first fragment, we've got the Threat of Generation. It says, dealing damage generates grenade energy. Again, this is a very powerful fragment. You're pretty much going to use this on all your Strand builds because of how powerful it is and because most builds will revolve around your grenade. Next up, we've got the Threat of Continuity. It says, suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. This is mainly going to be used to make sure our suspend lasts a little bit longer. And then finally, we've got the Wombo Combo, the Thread of Warding, and the Thread of Transmutation. Thread of Transmutation says, while you have Woven Mail, weapon final blows create a tangle. You will get Woven Mail with the Thread of Warding. Picking up an Orb of Power grants Woven Mail, so we typically use those two together. Next up for stats, you're going to max out your mobility. That is going to be your most important stat for this build because, like I said, it's got so much utility. Hunter's stat is going to be mobility. That is what gets your class ability back. So you want to make sure you got that up. And you've also got one of the quickest charging class abilities. In fact, the quickest charging class ability in the game, the Hunter Dodge. The Hunter Dodge, like I said, is going to get you your melee back. It's going to let you dodge out of danger. It's going to let you slam enemies into the ground. So this is a very, very important. Again, 3 in 1 for getting up that mobility. So make sure you get that up to 100. I know some people don't like doing so. They think it's a trash stat. You want to have that for Hunters. Don't listen to the rest of them. Titans and Warlocks may not need it. Hunters, you want to get that up there. Next up, Discipline. Of course, you want to have that maxed out. This is going to be a grenade-focused build. Get your Discipline maxed out. These mods do have a fairly quick cooldown timer, but you still want to get that grenade maxed out as much as possible. You can see I've got it to 100 on here. And then finally, you want to get your resilience either up to 100 or as close to it as you can get, up to 70 points. I'm 1 point shy here, but we're just going to pretend that it says 70. And then we can put on the Font of Endurance to make up the other 30 points. Font of Endurance, of course, will give you an extra bonus 30 points while you have an overpower on your chest piece. So we're gonna try to get up to 70 if we can, and then use the Font of Endurance to make up the other 30 points. The way this build works is going to be the same in both regular content and in-game content. The only difference is, in Grandmasters, the grenades you kill that you would try to kill enemies with are not going to kill them. Instead, it's going to blind them and stun them. You can then finish taking them out with your weapons. And again, of course, you can stun unstoppable champions with it. For regular content, your grenades will absolutely just wipe the floor with any red bars and will do devastating damage to any orange bars. On top of that, you don't have to be very accurate with your grenades. Just toss them kind of near enemies and the mods will take care of the rest. So that's the biggest difference. And again, the utility, the overshield is going to be even better for normal content because it's a very powerful overshield. And of course, enemies in normal type content are not able to break through it as easily as they will Grandmasters. Grandmasters, it does help. You can use it kind of as a oh shit healing button or to kind of help you get to, say, a res or something like that. It does help quite a bit, but it's not going to be quite as powerful as it is in normal content or even in raids. Alright, first off for the helmet, we're going to have Heavy Ammo Finder and our Siphon. Again, if you're solo, 2 copies of Heavy Ammo Finder. If you're in a group, 1 copy of Finder, 1 copy of Scout. Match up your Siphon for whatever weapon has got Demolitionist, because that's going to be the main weapon you're using. But try to get a weapon that's a primary ammo weapon with Demolitionist on it. Next up for the arms, we've got a copy of Firepower. Our grenades will be making orbs of power. Second up, since we're using this for every bit of content, not just Grandmasters, but for lower tier content too, we're going to be using Focusing Strike and we're going to be using Impact Induction. Now I actually considered, and you can actually take out Focusing Strike and Impact Induction if you're doing lower tier content and you want to make more orbs, and instead put on a copy of Heavy Handed. That will make it to where your melee, your powered melee, will generate orbs of power as well. However, since we're also using this for Grandmasters, instead of doing that, I went ahead and put on a copy of Impact Induction and Focusing Strike. Focusing Strike will grant you class ability whenever you cause damage with a powered melee, not killing but causing damage. And Impact Induction, says causing damage with a powered melee reduces your grenade cooldown. So basically for Grandmasters, you want the 2 mods that are going to be procced off of doing damage, but for lower tier content, you're going to want to go ahead and toss on a mod, if you want to, that's going to proc off of Heavy Handed. Now, you can still keep on Focusing Strike and Impact Induction for the lower tier stuff too, but if you want to get that extra orb of power, then you can go ahead and toss on the Heavy Handed. Past that, unless you want that extra orb, I would not worry about putting it on. I would just leave on Focusing Strike and Impact Induction. Alright, your chest mods will be 100% dependent on whether or not you got your resilience up to 100 and what defense mod you need. If you got resilience up to 100, don't worry about Font of Endurance, just toss on whatever other defense mods you want. If you want the extra heavy ammo, toss on whatever reserves you want. This is going to be 100% dependent on what it is you're doing and if you need any extra ammo or not. Next up, leg armor. You're going to have on a copy of Recuperation to give you energy back on ore pickups, and a copy of Innovation. You're going to want to put on your weapon surge if you're not using a kinetic weapon. I'm using a Strand weapon for my Demolitionist weapon, so I went ahead and put on a Strand weapon surge to help me do a little bit of extra damage with that. And finally, we've got the class item. We got, first off, Reaper. So shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. So dodging and then getting a weapon kill will get you an orb of power. Next up, we've got Distribution, and that is reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. So basically, whenever you get your Gambler's Dodge to proc, you're also going to be proccing Distribution to give you power for everything, not just getting your melee back. And finally, we have a copy of Bomber, reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. So it's going to be in one more way to kind of give us grenade energy back. So as you can see, all these proc off of us dodging. So if you proc near an enemy, you're basically going to proc and get energy back for everything, on top of getting your melee back in full. And then, like I said, for weapons, try to get weapons that have Demolitionist on them. If it's a Grandmaster, you only have to worry about one weapon if it's a Grandmaster with Unstoppable on it, because of the fact your Moths will stop unstop. So that is one extra perk when doing Grandmasters. Past that, all you got to do is just put on whatever you have a Demolitionist on it. I have on 3 right now. I've got a Circular Logic. You can get this from Neo Muna. I farmed from this when Lightfall came out, and it has Demolitionist on it. Next up, I have on the Wilder Flight Grenade Launcher. This came out of Spar of the Watcher. It says Demolitionist and Disorienting Grenades on it, which is one more way to stun enemies. And I've got on my Rufus' Fury, which comes from Root of Nightmare. I'm going to run into a Lost Sector and kind of show you guys how this build works. Alright, so I got rid of that. So first off, like I said, when you got the grenades here, if you throw them close to you, you can see I got snipers on me. If I throw the grenades close to me, the Moths turn purple, and they give me an overshield. Okay? If instead I throw them far away, you can see they turn yellow, or one turn yellow, one turn or one turn purple. That means I kind of threw it in between. But it killed one and then went to me for the other one, so it did 50-50. Now if I throw them in a group of enemies, you can see they both turned into damaging grenades and set out the enemies to kill them. So that being said, I'm going to run through and do this Lost Sector, and I will show you guys what it looks like. So as you can see, we got our grenade back a ton. They just destroyed enemies, and they tracked them down too. Now, the Moths do get stuck every once in a while in very tight spaces, but you can see they eventually got free and still attacked the enemies. They ended up killing the boss when I tossed the grenades over there. They destroyed the boss when I turned around for like a second. I turned back and it was gone. The Moths are very powerful. I did not get to show how they blind enemies too much in here, so instead, I'm going to hop into the Grandmaster real quick and just show you in the beginning how easily they actually blind enemies, even though they aren't going to kill them, and how much damage they still do to enemies, even though they don't die. Now, we're not going to do the entire Grandmaster. I just want to demonstrate the blinding effect here real quick. So you can see we got a couple enemies over here. Get their attention. I'm going to toss grenades out. They're going to hunt down the enemies. And you can see they're blinded. Now, they still did a ton of damage. A couple of them can take down enemies, but those that aren't dead are going to get blinded still. So it's very nice to actually stop enemies from attacking you, which is very, very powerful in Grandmasters. Again, typically in Grandmasters, you're doing utility-based stuff, you're not doing damage-based stuff. The fact that these grenades will not only track down your enemies, but stop them from attacking you, is very, very good. Now, there's one more interaction I haven't mentioned yet, and that is that the Mothkeeper's wraps actually interact with the X-Daris. That is the Hive grenade launcher that reloads itself. So what happens is, typically, I'm going to read it out so you know exactly what's happening here. It's got a perk that says, final blows with this weapon create a loyal moth. The moth will seek out nearby targets and detonate, damaging and blinding them. Well, while you've got on the Mothkeeper's wraps, whenever you get a kill, you will not only get that moth that will damage enemies, but you also get an overshield moth that will automatically seek you out. Now, it doesn't matter where the enemy is killed at, it doesn't matter how far away they are, you're going to get that second moth that's going to spawn and give you an overshield. Let's go ahead and see if I can get one real quick. There we go. You can see one moth flying towards an enemy, and we can see, there's a little guy, and we can see one moth came towards us. Now, depending on how you feel about this grenade launcher, this could be a really cool build to work around. I might make one later on. See, there's another one coming. I might make one later on. The grenade launcher could use a bit of work, but it is a very fun interaction that happens with this exotic. So, something to think about for some ARC builds. Now, final thoughts and notes about this build to keep in mind. Again, even though this build is rated for all tiers of content, the one thing you want to be careful is don't spam your grenades. It is going to take some getting used to, and this is a warning for this build. You're used to spamming grenades, you're used to just throwing them and having immediate effects. You're going to have to be a bit more proactive on this one and kind of use your ensnaring slam as the oh shit button. Don't try to use your grenade to do it. Your grenades need some time. Your moths have to fly, they got to get to where they're going to be going. So if you're trying to damage enemies, you really want to lead off an attack with those grenades versus trying to finish one up with it. If you need an overshield, you kind of want to try to plan that ahead of time if you can. You can't always do so. So these do kind of need a bit more planning. You may need to kind of know what it is you're getting into before you use those grenades. But that's just kind of the warning. You want to give the grenades a second or two to get to where they need to go to do what they need or what you need them to do. So that's the only real downside or real drawback I'd say for this is that you have to kind of really plan on when you're using these grenades. But that's where we have the other utility for this build as well, and that being the ensnaring slam. If there's stuff around you, that's typically when you might freak out and use a grenade to take out the group. That's when you just slam and get out of the way. So that being said, I'm going to go through and show off the fashion like I like to do. All of these shaders are going to be the Ultra Plasmic. I've got a bit of a mix for today. I kind of wanted to make a weird moth look, so I got kind of a mix of stuff here. I've got the Megalomorph Mask. I've got the Hexrod Vest. I've got the Hexrod Strides. And I've got the Apophic Lemure Cloak. So several different sets I've mixed here. They're all using the Ultra Plasmic shader. I kind of like the way they looked. It looked kind of Hive-ish to me. It kind of looked like you were the Moth King. Definitely looks like you would be a bad guy or that you'd be controlling moths on it, so I like it quite a bit. So, that being said, thank you all for coming by. The next build I do is going to be the Stasis version of this. This is not going to be a build that can be used in Grandmasters as easily. You might be able to still do it. I'm still tweaking it a bit, but that will be the next version of this. It's going to be the Stasis version of the same exotic. So yeah, it's been a fun day. I like doing all the research. I like that I got my first request. So thank you all for that. Definitely Beast. I appreciate the comment, appreciate the love. For everybody else, if you're looking for any builds or want me to do any builds, please let me know in the comments down below or join my Discord. Let me know there. And like I said, Beast, I will get to all the builds eventually. I'm going to space these out just a bit so that they're not all 100 builds, but these are the next 400 builds that I have up on my slate to do. So I will make sure I get all of those done. I do have builds for all of them, I just got to actually put them together and put a video together for them. So, yeah, that's going to do it for today. Like I said, next time is going to be the Stasis Mothkeeper build. Thank you all for coming by, and I will see you all in the next video.